And my wife's going to leave me. This is it. This is my big hurrah. So I decided I'm going to drink myself to death that night. I'm going to drink so much that I poison myself.
And I was, out of place, a very scared little kid. So, when I was 14 years old, I smoked my first joint, and I drank my first bottle of liquor, and I loved it. I sent the endorphins through the roof of my head. And I said, I found it. I found what's going to make me fit in, make me cool, make me, And then I realized that not just use it, but really feel it. You're the real cool guy. You're the, you got all the friends. And so I immediately, by 15, I was selling drugs. I connected with a lot of my friends, my older brother's band members were from up in LA, so I started selling. First I started selling marijuana. And growing up, we had everything we needed. We didn't want for anything. I didn't know if we had money, I didn't care. It wasn't on an issue. We had everything we wanted, and I was a very happy child. But when I started seeing all these other toys and things, and I started realizing that not only was I the coolest guy on the block, and I had all this attention, I also had money, and I'd never had money before. I sold eggs on the corner for 10 cents a dozen, so if this was big, I'll sit there with lots of money. So I fell into this lifestyle of having a lot of money, and I loved it. And that evolved. I went from, selling marijuana, and I just kind of went along with what was happening at the time. And I was always angry. I never got that fun feeling anymore. The fun feeling was gone. Every time I drank, I got angry. I got really ugly, got worse and worse and worse. And so I got to the point where I didn't care, and my liver was swollen. I knew I was going to die.
And I said to him, well, don't worry, I'm going to quit. I said, some Navajos are coming out. We're going to run a sobriety ceremony. And this is just coming out of my mouth. I'm trying to make him feel good, And he's heard it all before, and he just says, baloney. I know what's going to happen. You're going to start drinking. This is a new story about an old problem, and the same thing's going to happen. So don't waste my time with it. So I didn't know where this came from. But the next morning, I called up the Navajo woman and said, okay, it's going to be a sobriety ceremony for me. And I didn't know what I set into motion by saying that. She was real happy. She said, about time you came around, like she knew something. So she said, because when she makes the teepee, every stitch, she prays for what that ceremony is going to be about. So she's praying about my sobriety. So this set into the wheels of motion of this sobriety ceremony. So the day comes, they show up. We're setting up the teepee. She does a dedication in the morning. And in the dedication, there was an elder Navajo woman who looks at me and she said, you better understand what you brought on. She said, you better realize the seriousness of it. And I thought, all I want is this teepee. Let's get this over with and get on with it and let me carry on with my life. I didn't care about any of it. And by the time sun's setting, there's a whole group of Indians from all over the place. There's like 7 or 8 different tribes of people all over the place. And I go, where are these people coming from? Are they serving liquor or what? I don't get this, because I did not understand the whole thing. So I went into that ceremony, and I sat into that ceremony, and the road man introduces me, and everybody's looking at me like, okay, this guy doesn't know one song. He doesn't know anything about the ceremony. He owns the teepee, and he's the sponsor. It doesn't make any sense. So what's going to happen here? They didn't know what was going to go on. So he asked us, introduce yourself, explain what it was, and I just said, I'm a drunk, and I need help. And I said, if this will help, I'm all for it. He said, but I don't believe it, So I start looking around, and they start with the smoke, and everybody rolls the smoke and starts praying. And I look at people, and people are praying for me, and I didn't know anybody but one man in there. And these people are crying and praying for me, a complete stranger, that I would get sober. And I had no idea why they would do this. I didn't understand it. And it started to break my heart. And I started going, this is more serious than I thought. I didn't know what I was getting into. People need to find out that every person is native somewhere. Every person is native to this earth. In their history, Anglo-Saxon, doesn't matter. Everybody came from a tribe. At some point in your history, no matter what nationality you are, your grandparents were probably running around with feathers, somewhere. And they were living off the land. And they had indigenous ceremonies and tribal ceremonies and rituals. And that is why we have this innate need to be outside on the ground looking at the stars. People save up all year
for to have 7 to 10 days to go on a vacation somewhere beautiful and sit by a campfire and look at the stars? Why aren't they going somewhere inside? They're going there because they have this basic primal need to go back to the way they were. And then what's happening now is this is what we're doing now. Now we're going like this. The farther we get away, it's not just drugs now. This is really big. It's the farther we get away from each other. You know, we don't even talk face to face. We're doing exactly what, like as an alcoholic and a drug addict, what you do as you get advanced in your disease, you isolate. Your world gets smaller and smaller. You don't want to be around people, and you get tinier and tinier. Pretty soon, you just want to get to the store, get your alcohol, get back home. You know, and that's what's happening with this. Is people are getting shrinking. You know, I mean, your world tries to. Even though we're reaching out farther, our world is shrinking. We're becoming letters on a page instead of human interaction, and that has the same effect. You know, we're getting farther away.
As that night went on, my heart got broken and broken and broken until I was completely broken, until I was crying, and I'm going, you know, when it came to the main smoke, you know, he says, I want you to say something, and he rolled it for me because I was shaking so much I couldn't, you know, and I said, all I could say was, you know, sober me. That's all I could say, because that's all I knew at that time was that by this time I knew this was serious. This was my chance out of this nonsense, and I realized if this doesn't work, I will crawl out of here dead man. I will die soon, and it's not going to be a good death. So the night went on, and things happened in there, and I kind of detail it in the book. And I came to the end of myself, and I came to literally meet my Creator. And I walked out there. They said to me, it's going to snow, and I thought they're talking symbolism. In morning time, it's going to snow. And when you step out of here, you're going to make new tracks and fresh snow, a new day. And they said, you got 12 steps to that door. When you open that door, you can take your 13th step in fresh snow and start a new day, new tracks. So I stepped out that morning, and I started I walked out, I took a deep breath, and fresh, it did snow, which is really unusual. September in a drought for it to snow in this place. It snowed once, and then the women went out to get the sacred meal, so they made tracks all over. I said, well, I guess I won't be making new tracks. And then it snowed again, and then everybody who walked in front of me stepped to the right, so that my first 13th step right outside there was in fresh snow. And I made new tracks that day, and the craving went away forever. I lost the craving for alcohol that day, and I didn't go through the DTs, and that was 12 years ago, and I haven't drank since. And what happened to me that night was a miracle. But since then, I've gotten very serious into the Native American Church and very serious into understanding it, you know, and finding out that the Winnebago people, of course, you know, it's an intertribal ceremony. It's not just for one tribe, it's for all tribes, but it's for all Indian people. And that medicine changes lives, and I've seen it happen. It's a brain disease, and it's also, basically, it's a spiritual disease. And as a spiritual disease, it only has a spiritual solution. That's the only solution there is.